This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. What a beautiful thing today, ladies and gentlemen. Obama's presidency is almost over. Thank God. Obama's legacy is one of wars, mass surveillance, a loss of civil liberties, and for better or worse, but mostly worse, healthcare reform. Just think back to 2008 for a second. Bush was terrible for America. Everyone knew that. But with Obama's campaign promising hope and change, everyone was completely duped. The economy was tanking, and the process of never-ending money creation was just starting to kick into overdrive. Obama was the statist messiah who came here promising hope and change. And he played right into the left-right paradigm, which the American people at the time were buying into in a big way. The Federal Reserve was able to keep the jobless recovery going for Obama's 8 years while he bombed and droned and completely decimated the Middle East. And relations with Russia also deteriorated under his watch. The Obama foreign policy was no different than Bush's before. In fact, with Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State, it was even worse. Obama may not have invaded Iraq in 2003, but this act gave the Democrats and the Pentagon and the CIA and the military-industrial complex the ability to endlessly bomb the Middle East, while at the same time using media propaganda so that the public wouldn't scrutinize this whatsoever. And under Obama, Libya and Syria were destroyed, and millions of refugees were leaving these war zones and entering into Europe. The controlled opposition adopted the identity politics of the left, and new right-wing movements were individually blaming refugees instead of the U.S. empire's war machine. The old left at least used to be anti-war, but ever since Obama's inauguration in 2008, and in spite of the fact that he won a Nobel Peace Prize, which is just a cruel joke to his drone bombing victims, the opposition to the wars is virtually non-existent. And with no opposition, the surveillance state is moving forward. Under Obama, it was revealed that the government really does listen in on your phone calls and tracks your emails and your internet activity and everything you do on your so-called smartphone. And when whistleblowers sounded the alarm, Obama refused to exonerate them. Under the Obama administration, there was death and mayhem and such a loss of civil liberties that pales in comparison to anything that the Bush administration was able to do. Obama was a puppet for the deep state, and a very good one at that. But what about the progressive things that he did for the domestic population? Well, like treating cattle in a tax farm, Obama finally reformed healthcare that had been in gridlock for years. But state-run healthcare is not something Americans want. It doesn't work here in Canada, and in the US, this is leading to be an industry-led cartel, which is what it is now, only it's going to be financed by the taxpayer. In other words, Obamacare forces Americans who weren't buying into the crony capitalist insurance scam to purchase health care or face fines. Obamacare is like one giant broken window. It benefits some people in the short run, but it negatively impacts everyone in the long run. As well, under Obama, the deficit rose, and the purchasing power of the dollar fell. So the only rational conclusion that one can come to here is that Barack Obama was the worst president in U.S. history. Of course, it's hard to beat Lincoln, who prevented the dissolution of the Union by violent means and by changing the narrative of history to make the Civil War about slavery. But in the larger context, Obama's 2008 campaign was one of the largest lies ever pulled on the American people. A widely unpopular Bush who was waging war in a surveillance state was replaced by this charismatic black man who promised hope and change, but ended up doing the exact same things, only worse. It's little wonder that over a decade of this New World Order agenda continuing, populist movements are rising up all over the place. Yet, in some ways, in the grand scheme of things, Obama's presidency was somewhat of a lackluster event. Just a final burst of energy before this supernova implodes on itself. And when this ship goes down, folks, it's going to be with a bang. So make sure you are prepared. It's good to stock up on gold and silver if you have the means, and remove yourself from the system wherever possible. And moving forward into 2017, we hope that you will join us here as a PFT member or a PFT patron by contributing $5 or $10 a month or whatever you can afford to help us to bring you this truth that you so rightly deserve. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth.